So in this video, we're not going to do any new content. We're just going to practice answering exam questions on what we've looked at so far. I'm going to post or put the exam question on the video. I would like you to pause, do the question by yourself, and then press play when you are ready for the answer. So for the first question, I know my class should have seen this one before, okay? They have drawn a blood cell for you on a piece of graph paper, and they tell you down the bottom the scale. So they're saying that everywhere here we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes. Each set of 5 boxes represents 2 micrometers, and they want you to use this scale to estimate how wide the blood cell is. So if every 5 boxes is 2 micrometers, how wide in micrometers is your blood cell? So press pause, figure it out for yourself, and then press play when you're ready to see the answer. So going through the answer, okay, one of these boxes between these 2 grey lines represents 2 micrometers. If I look at the width of my red blood cell, I can see that in total it covers 1, 2, 3, 4 of those boxes. Each box is 2 micrometers. It covers 4 of those boxes. So 4 times 2 is going to be 8. That means the width of my cell is going to be 8 micrometers, and that gets you 1 mark if you got that correct. Okay. The second question asks you to complete the table below. You need to say what part of the blood. So they give you the function, you write the part of the blood, and then for the plasma, you'll need to write the function of the plasma. That's going to be for 3 marks. And then underneath you see here, platelets are fragments of cells. They help clot the blood. What would happen if the blood did not clot? Answer those 2 questions and then press play again when you're ready to see the answers. Okay, so I've filled in the answers. The part of the blood that carries oxygen around the body is the red blood cell. Give yourself a mark for that. The part that fights against infection is the white blood cell. And the plasma we know is the liquid part of the blood, but its actual function is to carry things around the body. So we know that the blood cells, the red blood cells, the white blood cells, and the platelets are all suspended in the plasma. So as a function, I can say that it carries the red blood cells or carries the white blood cells or just blood cells in general. There are other things that are carried in the blood. Things like hormones are carried in the blood, proteins are carried in the blood, glucose is carried in the blood. But here I've just written that blood cells are carried in the liquid part of the blood, which is the plasma. So that's 3 marks. Underneath, platelets clot the blood. What would happen if they didn't clot? So the kind of your immediate danger, if you didn't have platelets, if you cut yourself, you're just not going to stop bleeding. You will just bleed and bleed and bleed and bleed. Okay, so that's your kind of immediate danger. And then, of course, if you've got an open wound that's not repairing itself, that means you've got a break in your skin and pathogens can enter your body through that break in your skin. So either will get you the mark there. The next question is about tuberculosis. You're going to have to read the following passage and then answer the questions. Just to point out, this word here, microbe, is another word for the word pathogen. So that's what they're asking you there. The rest of the questions, have a go at answering yourself. There's 5 marks there. Press play when you're ready to see the answers. So I filled in the answer. Okay, you are breathing in this bacteria and it affects your lungs. They've told you that it's a bacteria, so then they ask how it can cause disease. When we looked at different pathogens back, I think 2 or 3 lessons ago, we saw that bacteria produce toxins. That's how they make you feel sick. Name one other group of pathogen that causes disease. So you're talking about bacteria, so you can't pick bacteria, which means you can write viruses, protists, or fungi. Either of those are acceptable answers. Suggest why people who live in overcrowded areas are more likely to catch it. If you're in a crowded area, you're more likely to come in contact with an infected person than if you're living in a less crowded area. Also, if you've got lots of people who are infected in a small area, they're all coughing and sneezing, and there are lots and lots of bacteria in the air. So you can say you're more likely to come in contact with an infected person, or that there is more TB bacteria in the air in an overcrowded area. Okay, so this is part of 2E, so continuing with the question above. This is people infected with a small number of bacteria often do not develop the disease. Explain how the body defends itself against the TB bacteria. So this is for 3 marks. Just do what you can from the last lesson. How is the body going to protect itself against TB bacteria? So press pause, have a go, and then press play when you're ready for the answer. Okay, so I've written out the answer, and to be fair, there is one point that I forgot to mention in my last video. Okay, so at this point, the bacteria are already inside your body. So you're not talking about the skin, you're not talking about mucus or ciliated cells, okay? They're already inside your body. How is your body going to fight? So you're going to talk about your white blood cells and how they actually fight infection. Two types of white blood cells. The first one I've talking about is phagocytes. I said phagocytes surround and destroy bacteria, okay? That's one mark. Then I've said lymphocytes produce antibodies that will destroy bacteria. Okay, so hopefully you got those 2 marks. But what lymphocytes can also do is they can produce antitoxins. So we know that bacteria produce toxins. That's how they make you sick. Lymphocytes can produce antitoxins that will counteract or neutralize the toxins produced by bacteria. Now, I forgot to mention that in the last lesson. So make sure you take that point down now. It's another thing your white blood cells can do, specifically your lymphocytes. They produce antitoxins. When you've taken that down, we're going to move on to question number 3. Okay, so pathogens make us feel ill. Give one reason why. White blood cells produce antibodies. 2 other ways that white blood cells protect us against pathogens. So you can't mention antibodies. 2 other ways. Use the answer I just gave you to help you answer this question. Press pause, have a go, and then press play. Okay, so your answer, pathogens make us feel ill. Okay, it'll depend on the pathogen. If it's a bacteria, they'll produce toxins. If it's a fungus or a virus, they'll just destroy your cells. So saying either of those 2 things will get you your marks because they haven't asked you about a specific pathogens, just pathogens in general. Okay. How do white blood cells protect us? You can't talk about antibodies because they've asked for other ways. So you can say produce antitoxins, just like we had in the answer above. And then you can talk about the phagocytes. Okay, they haven't specified, but I would say the phagocytes surround and engulf pathogens. That's another way that they deal with them. But you can't mention antibodies in this answer. They've asked for 2 other ways. Okay, so that's question 3. Moving on to question 4. And this is a 6-mark question that basically... it's on everything that we've looked at in the previous questions. It asks, describe how pathogens cause infections, okay? And then describe how the immune system defends the body against these pathogens, okay? So they specifically want to know about the immune system. So you're going to be talking about the white blood cells, how they defend the body against the pathogens, and you're going to talk about how the pathogens make you sick in the first place. So start by saying how they make you sick, and then describe how the immune system deals with it. Just write it in bullet points if you want to. Just try and give me 6 points that will answer this question using the answers that you've already written in your previous questions. I'm going to press, I want you to press pause, do it yourself, and then press play when you've written an answer that you're happy with and you can mark it. Okay, so I've just written one answer here, but there are lots of things you can say as long as you're making multiple points, okay? So the first part is describe how pathogens cause infections. I've started by giving an example of a pathogen. So I've picked bacteria. I said bacteria is a pathogen and it's going to produce toxins. Okay, so that's how bacteria works. And then I've picked another pathogen. I've said viruses, and I said they infect your cells and they destroy them. Okay, even if you weren't that specific, at least name some pathogens and say that they destroy your cells or they kill your cells. Okay, even something more vague than what I've got written will get you marks. Okay. Then describe how the immune system, so you're specifically talking about the immune system. You're not going to be talking about the skin or the mucus or the hydrochloric acid. You're going to be talking about the white blood cells. So I've mentioned that. I said white blood cells fight infection. And then I've told that there are 2 different types of white blood cells, the phagocytes and the lymphocytes. If you didn't mention phagocytes and lymphocytes, you'll still get your marks. Just say white blood cells fight infection, and that's a mark in itself. Then I've been more specific and I said phagocytes surround and engulf pathogens. On the mark scheme, it didn't even require you to use that word phagocytes. It would have let you say white blood cells surround and engulf pathogens. Then I've said lymphocytes. So again, I've been specific. Lymphocytes produce antibodies that destroy pathogens. So I'm saying that they're producing antibodies and I'm saying what those antibodies do. And then I'm also saying that they can produce antitoxins that will neutralize toxins. On the mark scheme, this answer I've written would actually get more than 6 marks, okay? You just need kind of 6 pieces of information that relates to the question. You don't even need to be as specific as I've been, okay? There's also lots of other things you could write, okay? You could have gone into a lot more detail. You could say that the lymphocytes were specific, that they only fight specific pathogens, that phagocytes are non-specific and will destroy all pathogens. You can talk about memory lymphocytes and how they remain in your blood and then help you fight the infection even quicker if you get infected a second time. So there's lots of other relevant points that you can include in your answer, but just try and write as much as you can. You do get marks for everything you write that's relevant, so just try and write as much as you can in a 6-mark question. In question number 5, and this is our last question. So again, how do viruses cause illness? We've seen this one before. The next bit, read this for yourself. It's for 3 marks, and see if you can write me an answer. I'm not going to go through it with you until afterwards. Have a go by yourself first. Read this part carefully, and then try and suggest an explanation. Press pause, do the question, press play when you're ready to go again. Okay, so the first part of the last question we've seen before, how do viruses cause illness? Just say that they destroy cells. They infect cells, they reproduce inside them, they destroy them. The next part, it says that a British company went to the Peruvian Amazon and were accused of starting a flu epidemic. And you're asked to suggest an explanation for this. Okay, so the TV crew themselves were not sick, they didn't show any symptoms, but members of the Indian tribe died from the disease. Why? Okay, so you can write that the TV crew were immune to the flu. They already had the antibodies they needed to fight it, so they didn't get sick. So the TV crew from Britain had obviously been exposed to this flu before. Because they'd been exposed before, they had antibodies in their blood that were able to fight it. So we can say that they were immune to the flu, or they had the antibodies needed to fight it, so they didn't get sick. On the other hand, the Indian tribe had never been exposed to this flu before, so they weren't able to fight it. You could say that they didn't have the antibodies in their blood. Because they weren't able to fight it, they got sick and they died. Okay, so this comes back to antibodies, memory lymphocytes, and having those antibodies in your blood, enabling you to fight a pathogen that's been in your system before. The TV crew were able to fight it, the Indian tribe were not able to fight it, and it caused deaths. So anything along that line will get you your marks. Okay, so that's the end of our exam questions. It was out of 26, so give yourself a mark out of 26, and that's pretty much kind of all you need to know about your about the immune system. In next week's lessons, we're going to have a look at vaccines, antibiotics, and drug trials in general.